Scrappy peeps, Suzanna here today for Spiegel Mom Scraps to share with you a large photo layout that I created using a digital cut file and Sequins. So that is the layout, and here's the sequence that I used. I used Green Acres and Out of This World. I used a mix of the two, and I pulled the greens that I wanted and the blues. So that is the cut file. I pulled it apart and just turned the Come Fly With Me, and I cut that in the top center of my photo. So this is an 8.5 by 11 photo, and I am using the whole photo as the canvas to create upon with that digital cut file as the title of the layout, and I'm going to back that with just white cardstock. Because I have cut into a photo, I just want the plain white behind it. If I were to put too much color behind it, it would become too busy. Unfortunately, I put the white cardstock down a little too low, so I had to pull that up and reposition that. And in the repositioning, I had a little bit of excess that hung out over the edge, and so I just trimmed that off. I wanted to have the innards of the letters, so the inside of the O and the F and the L and the that delineated, that made the letters what it is. So what I did was I took the letters that they came with, and I put glue on the back, and then I just pushed it through with, as you can see there, an embossing tool, and that pushed, so the innards were stuck to the cut file, which was perfect because it held them in place, allowed me to put the glue and then push them down and have them pop out, kind of like a die cut that's attached to the paper, and position that exactly where it was supposed to be. So that's one way that you can tackle those digital cut files. Jody has a bunch of new cut files in the Spiegel Mom Scrap store. So if you are a if you are a digital cut file fan, otherwise known as Fiegel, then be sure to stop on over by the store, and I will link you in the box down below for these free files that she has created. So this is kind of a play on words. By fly, Jody probably had this, she was creating more of a butterfly was what she was thinking of, but this stroke is known as butterfly, and so I translated this to work for my swimmer. The pattern papers that I'm using here, I just pulled, whoops, that ripped as I cut it, so I decided that I was going to need to fix that. In the meantime, I have cut myself off. So what I was trying to say was these pattern papers are just papers that are from my scrap stash, my pattern paper scrap stash. I store my scraps several ways. I keep my cardstock by Roy G. Biv color, and then I keep my pattern papers separate, also by Roy G. Biv color, if they are towards the end of a collection. However, if they're part of a collection that I know very well, I'm going to put them back into the collection, which I store in Ziploc bags. So most of my collections that I store are going to be within the past year. After they've become about a year old, I break the kits down, or I break the collections down, and I store things by either manufacturer in a iris box, or I store them and break out the scraps if they're small enough into my scrap bin. So what I've been working on this layout is just, I decided that I like the picture the way it is. You saw I had a smaller picture, and I thought that maybe I would put a smaller picture in that big open white space. It's actually blue, but it's called white space below my daughter, but that was too distracting, and so I am just going to leave that as it is. So you saw I had adhered that green strip, but I wanted another color strip, and I wanted that other color to be blue. And by putting the blue down below the green, I shifted your focus because the weight was too much below the green. So that's why I pulled up that green. You can see where the paper was left behind, and it's not a big deal. the paper is thick enough that there's still enough weight to what was left, that I moved the green down and then pushed that navy blue up to the top so that it creates balance in the layout. You can see that the black tile that's at the bottom of the page, it's a reflection in the water, creates a lot of weight down there, and so I wanted something darker at the top of the layout in order to balance that out. So then I'm also going to put 2 strips down the bottom, another blue strip and another green strip. Again, different colors, different pattern papers to add a little bit of variety and some visual interest to the layout, and adhere those down for the footer, as I call it, of the page. I had pulled a bunch of elements that had green and blue. My original intent with this layout was to put that smaller picture at the bottom of the page and then have all of my elements in the center of the page, at the top on the header and then down at the bottom. The problem is that with "Come Fly" in the title over to the right hand side, if I had put the elements in the center, you can see, if I had put the elements in the center, it skewed the balance of the layout. So by putting the label, the white label, at the top right hand side of the layout, then having her white cap, the white title, slightly off center, and then her cap in the center, and then that other bigger white label down at the bottom left hand side, it moves your eye in a bit of a diagonal down the page, and is less, I'm going to say, annoying. It's a more consistent line of motion because of that "Come Fly With Me" being centered over to the right over there. So I am just going to find some embellishments to kind of fill that. I knew I wanted that big white label for some journaling, but it was really, really glaring white. And so I knew I needed to cover just a little bit of that. And that's why I pulled out that label from, I believe that was Echo Park, that says "Summer Days." I also felt like I needed a little bit more black down the bottom of the page to balance out the layout, which is why I pulled out those Teresa Collins labels and put those black stars, they're actually white stars on black, at the bottom of the label for that weight. So you can see I have the black that's going up the top there, that's the circle. And then I have her black goggles in the middle, and then I have that black line from the Teresa Collins. This banner I am cutting in half because it is too long if I use it whole, and I just wanted a little bit of color. It's hard to see because it's the same tone as the water shadow, but it was fine because it just adds a little extra oomph and kind of breaks up the bottom of the page down there. So that's why I chose to put things where I chose to put them. I'm going to just adhere all of that down, and that's going to take a little bit of time. And I still wanted a little bit more embellishment before I add the sequins. And I told you what 2 sequins mixes that I used. The color palette for this layout is, as you can see, green and blue. Our team colors for our summer swim team are green and blue, so you see the blue water. And then in her hat, which you can't really see in her cap, is a big green W for the team that they swim on. And so I was using team colors here as the color palette for this. And then because she had the black goggles, I do have a splash, it's actually a trio of black elements in there to just kind of pop that a little bit and provide that other contrast color. So I wanted some sequins because it goes very well with the splash of the water as she's swimming and adds that little bit of shimmer to the layout. I've had a lot of people ask over the past couple of months how you get sequins down on a page and how you get it to stick. So there are 2 primary ways that I stick sequins down, and I'm going to show you that. I'm going to zoom into the layout. First of all, I'm going to place the sequins where I want it to be. And it's not exact because I know that when I use my Scotch Quick Dry adhesive, what I do is you'll see, I put adhesive down and then I pick it up and then I move it into the adhesive blob. So it's just a general idea of where the sequins is going to go. The larger sequins I put down with adhesive dots, and the smaller ones go down much better with liquid adhesive because you can see the dot adhesive behind it, and so that's why I do what I do with Sequins. I know a lot of people use the glue dots. I prefer using liquid adhesive, and I don't have any problems with them popping up off the page if you were to fold the page or kind of warp the page somehow. I am putting another touch of black into the layout, and again, just it needs that little bit of a darker color for some weight to the layout. So I'm using these Tim Holtz rub-ons that I got from Tuesday Morning, and that one there says live every day. And there's the glue dots. So I'm going to put the sequins into the glue dot, and then I'm just going to stick it down. And those are the perfect size for the glue dot that way. So that's one way that you could adhere your sequins. The other way, I'm going to move down to the bottom of the layout, or use for the smaller. I have Scotch tacky glue in a fine line bottle. I'm going to put the adhesive down, blop, pick up the sequins with my the tip of the nozzle, and then plop it down into the adhesive. See? Perfect. I don't get glue all over my fingers. I don't get sticky fingers. And that excess glue just smushes and dries clear and is not a problem at all. So here are the close-ups. I hope you've enjoyed this process video. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to leave them in the box down below. And if you use the code Suzanna15, you can save 15% on your next purchase. Thanks for stopping in today. Take care.